We often get asked the difference between the Ball Mason preserving jars and the Fowlers Vacola jars, and so this video is to demonstrate the differences in a visual way. The Ball Mason jars have embossing on the sides and are sort of a square shape, so whilst they're round on top, the sides are sort of square, it's quite easy to grip onto them. They come with a two-piece seal which consists of a lid and a seal inside and a screw down band. The Fowlers bottles, on the other hand, are a perfectly round plain jar with Fowlers at the bottom, and then the number of the jar will be written at the bottom of the jar. The Fowlers seals consists of three parts: a rubber ring or seal, a lid which is either tin plated like this or a silver coloured stainless steel lid, and a clip. So let's just demonstrate the differences of the two in action. We'll start with the Ball bottle. Let's assume that it's full of food and ready to be processed. We would wipe the top of the jar, this section of the jar here, because this is where our seal is on the lid. So we just place that on top of the jar, and then the band is going to hold the lid in place while we process, so it gets screwed down finger tight, or if you want you can use the Sure Tight band tool to tighten it to just the right tightness. What you don't want is to have it on super duper tight like that, because when it processes it won't allow the air to escape from the jar. Once the jar has been processed and cooled, as it cools you'll hear this little pop top on the top of the jar will pop down, and you can also test for a seal. If you press down on this, you shouldn't get any movement on the lid. Once it's cooled and ready to store, you can remove the band and store the jar. With the Fowlers jar, the seal sits on the side of the jar in this little groove on the bottle. Now you may find it easier to soak the rubber seals in some warm water first to make it a little easier to apply them to the jar. Basically we're going to pop the seal on the jar, and the tricky thing here is to make sure we don't get any twists in the seal, so we just make sure it's nicely straight all the way around. And you'll see that when it's seated it's sort of slightly angled outwards. And then place the lid on top of the seal, and then the clip will hold the lid on while it's being processed. So the clip goes on by a little bit of brute strength sometimes, just to stretch it out so that the clip is sitting under the little lip on the jar on both sides. Some people will even put two clips on the jar just to be sure. Again, once the jar has been processed and cooled, you'll be able to remove the clip, and the lid should remain in place when you lift up the jar just by the lid. It should stay in place, and again you should get a nice solid sound when you touch the top of the lid.